Okay, now we move on to Alan Kaplan. So Alan, those of you who've been around in OMA for a while will know Alan from a long time ago. He used to be a key guy in OMA. He liaised with developers. I think the developers interest group was one of his key things. But now he's here to talk to us about his company, DragonForce.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, it's very nice to be here. I haven't been here for quite some time, but it's very nice to see some familiar faces. So Kevin invited me to come here today, I guess, to talk about a little bit of a different type of messaging. Some of the work that I've been in the last 5 years at a small software company called DragonForce outside of Philadelphia, involves collaboration. So I'll introduce you to DragonForce. I'll tell you a little bit about how collaboration is done in public safety, so law enforcement, criminal justice, first responders, that sort of thing, how they handle messaging, and then we'll look at some of the stuff that we do, something called DragonForce as a case study, and then we could talk about maybe some future issues for messaging for public safety. So just a little bit about DragonForce. DragonForce is Greek for dragon. We were founded by Drexel University, which is the Drexel Dragons. I'm not quite sure where DragonForce came from that, other than it's just a translation for dragons. But really, what we're interested in is mobile collaboration, which is really about how do you get teams of individuals to work together more efficiently, more rapidly, using mobile devices, tablets, and computers. That's the general problem. We've been working primarily with the U.S. Department of Justice, Department of Defense, Department of Transportation. That's where we got a lot of our use cases and requirements. Actually, one of the things I learned from OMA is the importance of use cases and requirements. So what I'm going to talk about today is some of the collaboration capabilities that we've provided for public safety, but I think it also generalizes some other domains, and I'll touch on some of that. Some of our technologies have been deployed to the York County, Pennsylvania Quick Response Team. They're a SWAT team. And in Gloucester, New Jersey, the Hazardous Material Team uses our technologies. So who needs collaboration? Well, these guys do. You may not know it, but every day, especially in the United States, there's a lot of bad things that happen. Some guy gets drunk, he barricades himself in a house, takes hostages, and then we have these specially trained individuals to come to protect us. And so what we've been doing as a company is trying to understand their collaboration requirements, the types of messaging needs, this special type of messaging that they need. And actually, one of our approaches, I think it's fairly unique in order to get our use cases and requirements. My software engineers actually, and myself too, we embed with these guys on trial. So we put on our tactical clothes and we actually go in with them to really understand their use cases. It's not a matter of just creating technology and bringing it to them. We actually want to understand what their needs are. But as I said, collaboration really spans many different domains. So there's tactical operations, there's routine operations in law enforcement, hazardous materials, as I mentioned. It could be event management, search and rescue, even homeland security. And in all of these scenarios, these teams need to follow or improve what's called their OODA loop, to observe, orient, decide, and act much quicker, much faster, and to create a common operating picture. And so, this idea of collaboration and trying to do this much faster is really a cross-cutting requirement. So if you look at public safety, how do they do it today? It's not like TV where it takes 22 minutes to handle some operation. It takes a long time. They primarily are using their radios. So whether it's routine from the dispatch to somebody in the field, or it's a tactical operation, they're using their radios. Sometimes even in the cruisers and the patrol cars, you'll see a lot of them have laptops now. So they're starting to get to that idea of where they want to have data services. But once they leave the car, they don't have anything. They just have their radio. They may have photos, they may have pictures. The way a lot of tactical teams will work is they'll deploy their snipers, and then they'll get on the radios and they'll start saying, where are you? You know, well, I'm behind the oak tree. Well, which oak tree? And so they're negotiating location over the radio, and this is really modern tactical teams who are protecting you and me every day. So, you know, in our embedding with tactical teams and law enforcement officers, we just observe them. We watch what they do. And a lot of times, radios don't work very well, or they're very congested. There may be a couple of talk group channels, but not everybody could talk at the same time, right? And so, especially today, a lot of officers have their own smartphones, and they'll start texting one another, because they know, I know Kevin, he's on the bomb squad with me, so I just text him. Or they're, if they're doing a drug bust, or it's a meth lab, and they need to take a picture, they go, well, I have my smartphone, and I'll start taking pictures. So this bring your, BYOD, bring your own device. Officers are no different than anybody else about bringing their devices to work. So why are they doing this? Well, first of all, as I mentioned before, there's too much congestion on the radio. Voice is not good enough. Sometimes it's just faster. We know if I need to contact my daughter, I could text her. It's just faster than calling her. It's also stealthy. We found a lot of officers who, like Border Patrol, nobody knows if you're texting. If you're on your LMR, your land mobile radio, they know exactly that you may be a Border Patrol agent. A lot of times, environments are very noisy. We've been in subway tunnels with officers, and you cannot hear a thing down there. It's just another tool for them. Getting back to the OODA loop, they will use whatever tool they can to protect themselves and to protect us. So what are some of the problems with using consumer-grade platforms for messaging? Well, one problem is that SMS, MMS, it's owned by the operator. So if you need to get those text messages back, you need to get those photos back, somehow you're going to have to talk to the operator. Because it's very important for these organizations to produce after-action reports. Kevin has his text messages, I have mine, Ben who has his. I mean, how do we get all those together? There's also an issue that primarily, and actually I've learned a lot now about RCS, but modulo that, text messaging, MMS is primarily point-to-point. These organizations work in teams. And for a particular operation, there may be multiple teams. There may be the sniper team, there may be the breach team, there may be the negotiation team. So point-to-point is just not rich enough to support these types of operations. So we have, again, when different users may be on different operators, maybe I'm on AT&T, somebody's on Verizon, maybe different capabilities. So they're not getting that homogeneous experience. And then lastly, there's a lack of integration with other kinds of capabilities that are needed for collaboration. And again, modulo RCS, but being able to integrate location, being able to integrate mapping, file sharing, photo capture, those sorts of things into one package that's easily usable. So let me tell you a little bit about DragonForce and DragonForce technologies. The basic capabilities are this. There's a dynamic group manager where you can form groups on the fly. And again, very important for these types of organizations, these groups are not formed in an ad hoc fashion. People in the field agents aren't forming their own groups. It's really up to incident commanders or dispatchers to have the ability to control that group formation. We support instant messaging and presence just like anybody else. Again, something very important for them. Blue Force tracking means being able to track a group of users on a map and to support different types of maps. So Google Maps is great, right? Because you have street-level maps and you may have satellite maps. But a lot of organizations will license their own aerial maps where they've paid for high-res photography. And so they want to be able to integrate that into the solution as well. We also support something called collaborative whiteboards. So you might think of this as a visual type of messaging. So on any surface, whether it's a map, whether it's a floor plan, whether it's a diagram, individuals in a group can draw and annotate on that surface simultaneously. So if they wanted, here's our plan for getting into the building, here's how we're clearing rooms, as opposed to using voice to say, well, we just cleared this classroom, and nobody knows which classroom that is. You could just mark it off on the whiteboard itself. Another type of messaging we support are shared situation reports. So this is like a form, but again, multiple users can contribute to that form simultaneously. File sharing, being able to distribute files very quickly within a group. And then, as I mentioned before, the ability to create these after-action reports. So as far as the mobile aspect of this, DragonForce runs on mobile devices. Actually, Windows Mobile happens to be the operating system for ruggedized devices. And we also have a web client as well, and we have an Android client too. So here's just to give you a flavor for what some of these capabilities might look like. In the upper left-hand corner would be, that's actually an aerial view, and I don't know if you could pick it up on the screen, but you can see the locations of different users. Below that is a whiteboard, again, different users contributing to that whiteboard. In the middle is an example of a situation report or a sit rep. It's similar to what you might have in an MMS, but in a structured way where multiple users can contribute to that form. And then in the upper right-hand corner, you could see the typical thing you'd find maybe in Skype or some other instant messaging client, a roster showing presence. One of the things that we do, which we think is important, is to be able to create aliases for users. Because, I'll pick on Kevin again. He may be the medic today, and then tomorrow he may be the grenadier. And nobody knows him by name, but they know him by role. And then finally, we have the messaging window at the bottom. So this is what you might see on the command center, and again, you would have a different view on the mobile device. Just quickly, not surprising here, how you might deploy this. You may have a team along with an incident, a mobile command center deployed somewhere. You may have an emergency operations center also supporting as well. The server may be hosted anywhere. It could be in the cloud. A lot of agencies, and this is actually important, want to host it themselves. They're very protective about their data. So what are some of the lessons we've learned so far? We used XMPP. We leveraged XMPP to build up a lot of our technologies. Why did we use XMPP? One, it was available. There was lots of open source. It was easy for us to create XMPP clients using the same API on both the mobile device and in a web browser. And I think, as the other Alan pointed out, we get interoperability out of the box. It's very easy for us to share among servers, although I'll bring that up as I finish up. The other thing that's very important for us is this notion of group-based messaging, group-based presence, group-based statefulness, or group-based history, group-based whiteboarding, group-based tracking, et cetera, that things happen within a group in our domain, in this particular enterprise. It's not so much point-to-point, but the notion of support of a group being a first-order object is an important thing for us. Another thing that we've had a lot of experience with is network disconnections. So despite claims by AT&T and Verizon and other operators that they have great coverage, there are times when we lose connection. And so one of the things that we've engineered is to allow users to work offline. So to still compose messages, to still whiteboard, to still use their maps, even when they're disconnected, and then when they get connected to be able to resync very quickly. And then the last real major, maybe more important than anything, is power management and engineering our protocols so that they could be as efficient as possible. The basic requirement we get from law enforcement is that the battery needs to last anywhere between 8 to 12 hours. And then they may carry a second battery to swap out. And they recognize when it's cold out, they may lose power faster. But the battery is critical. And in fact, our own experience, we've had very good experience with Windows Mobile, and Android, it just seems like GPS sucks out. You can hear the sucking noise when we start tracking. So we've had to play a lot of games with throttling GPS. We've also had to play a lot of games with throttling messaging as well to conserve power. So what's the future? Public safety long-term evolution will likely become the standard globally. It's being adopted within the United States. It's being adopted internationally as well. To be honest, now that I'm involved with a small software company, I don't follow the standards as much as I should, but I do know that APCA and Tetro have recently partnered and that they're trying to push public safety requirements into organizations like 3GPP. I don't know if they're working with OMA. In the US, recently, about 20 megahertz of broadband spectrum have been allocated out of the 700 megahertz band for public safety LTE. And this will be stood up as a private network run by the government called FirstNet, with about $7 billion of funding established for that. Now, FirstNet will be a private network for public safety, but what's anticipated that there will be agreements with the operators like AT&T and Verizon because they'll need to roam between FirstNet and commercial networks as well. So just some open questions. I don't know what messaging looks like for FirstNet. I don't know what the use cases are. I don't know what it means for somebody from San Francisco to have to message with somebody from New York. This goes to the interoperability, understanding what interoperability means in this particular domain. A lot of people will point to the 911s and Katrinas where these really crazy things happen and you have many users come in and you want them to interoperate, but then again, they don't know what that means for voice, let alone what it means for messaging. Who makes that decision? Who gets to talk to who? It probably happens at a higher echelon, and you try to get teams to integrate with one another. So that's basically my talk today. If you're interested, I could actually show you a demo of DragonForce. Thank you very much.
So thanks very much, Alan. If anybody's interested in a demo, I encourage you to seek out Alan later on. I assume you're here for the rest of the afternoon.
I'm here for the rest of the afternoon.
Okay, so thanks. I picked up that your main focus is on collaboration for emergency and other public safety messaging needs. Although collaboration today is mostly by voice, there is a secure private messaging capability needed, which integrates with other collaboration tools. It needs a very strong group focus, and the servers need to be run by the public safety organizations themselves. They need to be able to work offline and resync when online it becomes available, and you need to have a very low battery consumption to make sure that they can last throughout the working day. So with that, are there any questions for Alan?
Hi, Brian, AT&T. Question, you said working offline was one of the things that y'all had implemented. Have you looked at any technologies that would make it possible for a group to work offline together?
That's a great question. So we've looked at that a little bit. We've looked at some Manet technologies to achieve that. But, our working with those teams are usually so distributed that it's really hard to get a reliable connection. We've also worked with using some breadcrumb technologies, some 802.11 breadcrumbs as well. But I'll tell you, some of the problems with that is these tactical professionals, they're very good at what they do, and they're very smart, but understanding placement of breadcrumbs and where the network doesn't become transparent anymore, it often gets in the way of their operations. I could tell you one story. We were doing a trial, and one of my engineers was with the team, and he said, well, I need to move the breadcrumb. And the guy said, well, you can't do that because you can get shot by a sniper, by the bad guy. That's not something they teach you in grad school. So, I think there's a bunch of operational concerns there in trying to get that offline group to work together, even though they're disconnected from the mothership.
Okay, something you might want to look into. OMA recently completed Converged Personal Network Services,
okay,
which is an enabler specifically designed to facilitate personal network devices to form groups, basically. which can be totally disconnected from network services and operate, autonomously and then connect to network, as need be.
Okay.
So there are some, ideas that have been formed, at least in the standards domain, around facilitating personal network groups like that.
Yeah, and like I said, I think from a technology perspective, there's solutions. I think the real challenge there is operationally to make that work for these types of users.
Okay, thanks again, Alan.
Thank you.